You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Here's Kevin.
Do you find that when you're chatting with prospects or a new client comes on board that they've sort of not been sufficiently aware of like the fact that it needs to be potentially mobile first from a design perspective in their email templates, and that, while just because they're looking at their email on a desktop or laptop doesn't mean that their customers are, right? I mean, I find that that's the case with web development when we do it, or general design. So it must be the case in email as well.
It is. It has shifted. I mean, this was a conversation that I had on a fairly regular basis in the past, but it has shifted. I would say a lot of brands today do understand that it's mobile first, because different than the web design piece of it, where they're constantly looking at the website on a desktop, because most managers are reading email on their phone today. So their boss or their CEO or somebody up further in the organization is checking their own emails on the phone. They're going to get that feedback pretty quickly. But I'm going to let that question segue us into a conversation on iOS, if you'll allow me to. Which
that was my next question. So
yeah. I think it's really an interesting place to go if we look at what's going on today, and just to update anybody who's not into it as you and I are, and some of the people deep in the industry are, and we're following it for the last 8 to 10 weeks. Apple is releasing a new version of their software, and the objective of this new version of the software is protecting privacy, which I think is certainly very, very important. Data privacy is one of the greatest concerns consumers have today. The other side of this conversation is what's going to happen now to a metric most email marketers know and love, called opens. And so by releasing iOS, and it's not 100%, so don't bank me on this, but the conversations we've been having within the industry are that anybody who owns an Apple device and uses any one of the Apple native platforms to read email will therefore be rendered as an open. So if you own an iPhone or an iPad or a MacBook, and if in any of those you use Apple Mail, you don't have to use it in all of those. If you use it in any of those, any mail sent in, regardless of whether you turn on your device or not, any mail sent in to Apple Mail, which is where it's going to, will automatically be opened by Apple and render as an open. So as a marketer, if I want to go read opens, I'm going to see, regardless of the fact that you didn't even turn on your phone, I'm going to see that you opened that email. Even if it's a Google or something else that you're taking, your Yahoo email address, you're taking into the Apple email tool. And whether that's going to affect 20 or 30 or 40% of use doesn't really matter. It's going to pollute the water enough that it's going to change how we use opens, and we can no longer use opens as a proxy for engagement, right? To people. So that's the bad news, right? The good news is we as a company have never, or I shouldn't say have never, haven't used opens as anywhere near the top tier proxies for engagement. Recency of purchase, recency of click have always been the two big proxies, frequency of purchase, and then ranking those. And then later on down the road, when we get to after we've filtered out where 90% or 85% of the revenues come from, we go to opens before we go to balance of file, right? So if they've opened ever or opened in 90 days or 180 days, et cetera, they may constitute, and they didn't do any of the other things such as purchase or click or anything else, we may put them into the active file. We have found that for many clients, website visits works just as well. So we've found something, and then we use our own scoring methodology to identify other proxies. So we were, as we all are with technology, we were challenged by this a few months ago, and I challenged my internal team to come up with solutions. And the solutions they ended up finding increased revenue by 10% above what we were using for opens, and decreased send volume by 20%. So we became actually, if you look at it, 30% more efficient, because, thank you, Apple, because they forced us to get away from the metric of opens and start looking at other things that we would determine are real true engagement, and leveraging that. So if you look at the data, and it also pushed us somewhere where we're taking it for the balance of this year. I've challenged my data team, as I want you to start to look at this differently across different types of customers. Somebody who buys lipstick, or a pair of jeans or a t-shirt, which is an impulse buy, and is prone to repeat purchases, is very, very different than somebody who buys a camper, or something of a large, a refrigerator, and which are single purchases, which are consultative purchases, and so the proxy for site visits and things like that are very, very different, and the scoring should be very, very different for that. So that's the downside. Then I'll quickly give you the upside. The upside is, if an email is going to be rendered as an open, in other words, if I'm going to open up my phone and all of my emails are there already fully downloaded, there's no lag time, I can make the emails much richer. So now you're looping me back to the design question. I challenged my design team to, what are you going to do now that you've got the ability to design much, much heavier? All along, it's, bring down the design. We want it to be strong and powerful, but we want it to be light enough so that when the consumer gets to it, that fraction of a second when they click on the email and it opens, if it doesn't open quick enough, they're just going to hit delete. They're not even going to read the message. Well, now you can throw everything in there, including including video, and it'll be there, and it'll play, and it'll render. So I think this for us has been very positive and a transformational one.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.